Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 601, treads softly around sorcerers. Order up, roasted tothwing breast in a savory brown sauce, unlimited buns on the sides, and a big pitcher of sparkling law water. The deep voice of the family patriarch says happily as he lowers the platter of food before the customer. He then pats his enormous stomach and laughs. Trust me, that one's hard to eat in moderation. I know. He gives another laugh and heads for the back. Business always improves the days he helps out. Hey, Double Gramps, it's flashing, one of his great-great-grandchildren says, and he turns and freezes, but only for a moment. On the mantel as a display in his restaurant is a ceremonial communicator, a retirement gift, given only to soldiers who serve with distinction and honor, and with a direct link only to the highest offices. In case they are ever needed after retirement. The Scout Captain insignia is flashing white, and he crosses the now much quieter restaurant in a few steps and activates it. Scout Captain C.J. Bartholomew, you are needed at the Imperial Palace at your earliest convenience. The Empire needs you. It sounds out and ends. A simple message, clear as day. He raises his eyebrows and takes the communicator off the mantel. Well, this is gonna be awkward. I don't fit my old uniform anymore, he notes. Grandpa? One of his younger descendants asks, and he ruffles the young serving girl's hair. He towers over his family thanks to his combat modifications, and as awkward as it sometimes was, he only really had time to meet and make a life with his wives long after he had been changed. It's okay, pup. I'm sure it's just some sort of training or ceremonial thing. The Empress has far better fighters than the likes of me, and she's not the type to send people to just die. But you were a scout. Maybe she wants you to find something. Maybe, but I wasn't the best scout. It has to be something else, he assures her. Father? His eldest son and head chef asks. It's fine, Lawrence. The Empire has been good to us. There's no reason to suspect that changing now. No, that's not it. What is it? Your scout bike is in the shop. Since when? Yesterday when Darvos took it for a bit of a ride. Why am I only hearing of this now? Because he is paying for all the repairs and is on trash duty for a month, and I thought that was the end of it. But, right, I've still got my old skills. I can take the jump pads, East Bartholomew says. But the important part is, was Darvos hurt? He's fine. Well, not fine. He's still being punished, and he doesn't like that. Who does? Bartholomew asks with a huff of amusement. He then rustles his son's hair. Just do your best with him. Fatherhood is something we learn on the way, Lawrence says at the same time as him. That's right, pup, Bartholomew says with a smile, and Lawrence scoffs. I've given you great-grandchildren. You'll always be a pup to your pop. Lawrence just sighs as Bartholomew heads into the back and up the stairs to the expanded rooms where he and his entire family lives. He digs out his old formals. Hat with holes for horns he had modified for ears, a tail hole he had adjusted to accommodate his furry features, and he has to stretch things a bit and use the last few rungs of the belt rather than nearly halfway down as he used to. Gilded pistol and ceremonial war sword strapped on. He heads out with the communicator strapped to his belt and broadcasting his rank and standing. He remembers the old tricks, even if he hasn't used them in about a decade, and launches himself from his comfortable port home, and in 3 leaps makes it to the capital. 2 hops around the towering skyscrapers, and he arrives a half block away from the palace. He straightens himself and marches forward, right to the front gate, and shows his activated communicator. The guard nods and he's waved through. His ears twitch ever so slightly as he hears the door guard call this in and the response. A servant greets him at the door, and he can hear the clicks and shuddering of old or more exotic models of cameras snapping pictures. No doubt some image of his overlarge gut walking into the palace will have some insane story or another coming out. Scout Captain Bartholomew, I trust your trip was a pleasant one? The pads are well maintained, and no idiot tried to body check me in midair. So I would say the only way it could be better is if I had the opportunity to snatch a bird on the way. But the feathery little buggers have long caught wise, Bartholomew says with a smile, and she laughs in response. I can imagine. Still, do you have any idea why the Empress has called for you? Not in the slightest. I've been out of the military for 20 years now, and am not only behind on our current equipment, but overweight and very comfortable as a restaurant owner, an occasional chef or waiter. Brace yourself, Captain, the attendant tells him as she opens the door to an office and gestures for him to enter. My Empress, retired scout captain, Candy John Bartholomew. Bartholomew bows before entering and quirks up an eyebrow as the office has numerous vines growing along it and children he does not recognize. All male, all apuk, and it clicks. Sorcerers. There had been news of many different attempts to improve relationships with that ancient bit of Apuk history. My Empress, I am here as requested, Bartholomew says, and she nods and gestures for a seat. Sit down, good captain. This is a very serious situation. One that involves sorcerers. What can I do against the depths of that level? I would be lucky to merely survive against a battle princess. And they struggle to deal with sorcerers, Bartholomew asks. Yes, but I'm not asking for you to fight them. Oh? Well, if they need a hearty meal, Bartholomew says with a smack of his gut, then they'll get that from me for sure. That is part of it, the Empress says as she brings out a folder and places it on the table. On my world of Lib to Lub, criminals have stained its reputation and driven away vacationers looking to relax upon that glittering jewel. We are approaching 500 quadrillion credits in lost gross revenue on that world. I'm sure you can imagine what good the taxes from it could have done. But even worse than that are the direct victims of their vile acts. Bartholomew takes the folder and opens it up, his eyebrows climbing higher as he sees what's in there. Mutra? Wait, triplets? That can't be right. Twins and triplets share coloration, even fraternal ones. There are a total of 5 Mutra Bright Forest sorcerers, the Empress says. Even now they are enacting their vengeance upon their enemies. But I am concerned with what happens next. Rare is the sorcerer that sheds blood so soon, and it has never occurred outside the Apuk species. I want to be certain that I am not misunderstanding things, my Empress. In the plainest words possible, what do you want of me? I want your help in calming and civilizing the Bright Forest sorcerers, with a focus given to the Mutra ones. 4 of them have been forcibly made into children, with one more being an actual child. They have suffered unimaginable violation, brutality, and brainwashing to mold them into what they are now. As a Mutra man, I trust you can connect to these boys in ways that others will struggle to. As a father and family man, I trust you can give them a sense of safety. Finally, as one of the original Mutra and a skilled warrior, you have experience enough to relate to these children, perhaps not to the level of sheer trauma and horror they have undergone, but you will be able to connect with them, calm them, bring them back from the edge of screaming wrath. The Empress explains and Bartholomew nods as he reads the files closer. That is within my power. I've seen quite a bit in my service to the Empire and come to terms with many demons. You've noticed. They were about to expand the triplets into quadruplets, and with an actual child. Disgusting. Yes, thankfully the last one was different enough in his features to not be considered for that bit of twisted brainwashing. Pfft, these boys don't even look that much alike. You'd have to just see the shape of the ears and tail and ignore almost everything else, Bartholomew says. This one has a stronger jaw, freckles are coming in on this little one, and he's got more refined cheekbones. I'm afraid that you and your lovely family are the only Mutras I've had the pleasure to meet, so I have some species-based face blindness there. We all have our faults. My Empress in that one is most forgivable, Bartholomew says before glancing around the room. If these young sorcerers are there to get me to this other living forest, then I'll need some supplies then. He pats his stomach once more. It's not the healthiest, but a good meal can make a demon take a step back or two. I may have overindulged a bit, but it's better than sleeping with a weapon. In this case, you're free to take the supplies you need from the Imperial kitchens. And this as well, the Empress says, holding out a card. When it comes to assisting and calming the Bright Forest, you have access to the Imperial purse. Thank you, my Empress, Bartholomew says, closing the folder and reaching for the card. I will inform my family as to what is happening and gather the needed supplies. Should I return to this room for my Teleport? What's the proper term again? Wood striding? Wood walking. And no, the palace is well watched. Simply announce that you're prepared and you will be at Lilb to Lelb, the Empress says, and he nods. Very well, my Empress. I thank you for this unique opportunity. You are allowed to say no. Permission to speak freely? You served with distinction and honor. You always have that. There's no fucking way I'll ever even dream of doing something so void-damn selfish and short-sighted as not helping these kids, Bartholomew says as he stands up. I'll need to talk to them personally, see how dangerous they are. But I will be helping them. I'm glad, thank you. Of course, my Empress. Also, you are effectively reactivated until such time as all 5 Mutra sorcerers are considered stable enough to enter society and have left your care. You will be considered in deployment and paid as appropriate to your rank and standing, Scout Captain Bartholomew. Scene change. Large clearing. The bright forest, Lilb to Lelb. The triplets 3 glance around a mushroom at the large brown-furred Mutra cooking away at a grill. Savory scents flow out even as 2 more Mutra sorcerers join them. Clean the blood of first pups. I want you to enjoy this meal proper, without that nastiness ruining it. Why were you calling us? Daze calls over. He's a pure white Mutras with big brown eyes. A friend of yours wants to make sure you're doing all right, so they called me in to help you. You know us, Sky the pale blue Mutras boy asks. His tail is considerably skinnier and whippier than the others. Still fluffy, but not gigantically so like the other 4. The Empress knows of you, Hunter, so she's sending me here to help you all out. Now get cleaned up and get over here. I've got slow-cooked kur with shrooms and rootins in a thick gravy with larth grain to the side. Good stuff. Rich, tasty, and healthy. Perfect for growing pups. My own pups love it. You have pups? The triplet 3 asks as one. And grandpups, great-grandpups, great-great-grandpups, and so on until we get to great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpups. How old are you? 3rd. What? 3rd oldest Mutra alive. Really? 14th to ever be made. Now clean up and come get some. It's ready. Bartholomew calls over, and after a few moments, 5 kids are shaking off the rainwater they ran through to rinse themselves off and rushing over as Bartholomew scoops up a healthy portion into 6 separate bowls alongside the boiled grains. He hands them out with a smile and passes out spoons. Then he turns off the cooking station he set up and takes a seat on the ground. The 5 sit down nearby, but not next to them. So, I'm guessing you've all got all kinds of questions, and guess what? I'm an old man. I got all kinds of answers. Are you really one of the first Mutras? I am. I came out of the second of 2 primary splicing tanks used to make us. Why are you so big? I did a lot of work in the APOC military. If you're a field type or an officer, then you need to be able to carry around certain things with minimal axiom use, and I couldn't do that at normal size, so I grew myself up a bit. Why are you so fat? Because I like to eat. A lot. And ways it's helped me after I finally retired. Why did you retire? Because I saw too much too many times and needed to stop. Make no mistake, little pups, what happened to you all is horrible. But it's not the only horrible thing that's happened, and I saw a few. Like what? I fought the Dark Cabal pirates. I also scouted for survivors of their rampages. Some people say that all the different places where civilians are mass slaughtered blur together, but they really don't. You remember? Especially if you don't want to. Bartholomew says, then takes a big mouthful of his own bowl of food before speaking around it. It's why I eat so much. It can help. And like that, 5 children are stuffing their faces. He sighs sadly at the sight. Still, they know they're hurt and want to get better. That is a very important step. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 602. Tread softly around sorcerers. So, we all got full bellies, some fuller than others, Bartholomew says as he glances at the bowls. None of them but his own was empty, but he had expected that. He'd served up each child enough food for their next 3 meals each. Who wants to talk and about what? Or do you want me to talk? You talk, Daze says. Okay, about what? Bartholomew asks. A story, Knight says. About adventure and action, Dusk adds. But it has to be true, Dawn stipulates, and have a happy ending. The triplets three say as one. Oh, I got that. Wiggle till you're comfy pups. I got a story, Bartholomew says, and all five of them give little wiggles. He chuckles. All right, you all know that pirates are almost always the bad guys. Sometimes they're okay or doing it for the right reason or can be made to go clean, but these are exceptions. If someone's a pirate and you call them a bad person, you're almost always right, right? Right, the pups say together. Right. Now, not every world is heavily populated. For one reason or another, some planets just don't have that many people jumping on it to make a life there. Lilb Talelb is the opposite of that. It's a very pretty place, so a lot of people want to be here. But in my early days as a scout for the Apuk Empire, we were tracking a band of pirates and had a lead on a relatively undeveloped world. It had only a few small cities and was almost entirely self-reliant. It was just within the boundary of Apuk space, but it was very much the outskirts. Far from the regular patrols and further still from regular trade and traffic. Maybe 1,000,000 souls on that world. Why wasn't it more populated, Sky asks. It was the opposite of Lilb Tulelb. Where this world has clear sparkling water that looks like a gem, that world had grungy water. All of it was fresh, but a lot of the plant life and animal life made it look really, really gross. And if you left water uncovered for even half a day over there, it would start turning green and slimy, and little things would be living in it. It wasn't dangerous, but it was disgusting. Ew. Yeah, the pond scum was more prevalent than the spores are here. It was just everywhere. And the only reason you didn't always see it was because it withered and flaked away when it dried out. But the moment it got wet again, scum. Hey, Haka, can we feed the forest our leftovers? Daze suddenly asks. Sure, Bartholomew says. And the little guy picks up his bowl and throws out the leftover food, so it flies towards and lands around the mycelium of the massive mushrooms, giving them shelter from the rain. The other four quickly make a game of it, and there's a brief debate over who threw it the best. The winner is Night, who gives a little dance in celebration as Dusk and Dawn pout. Bartholomew chuckles as they all sit back down around him. Closer this time. He has some trust. Now, this world was called Hanpira Tlamp, or rather it still is. The world hasn't gone anywhere, Bartholomew says before chuckling at his little slip. Anyways, the world is green on green with some extra green for good measure. So me and the rest of the scout team were poking around the area where our ship had detected some unusual axiom patterns. But the foliage was so dense, we had to go on the ground to get a proper reading. Scene change. Thick forested valley, eastern reachers, 450 years ago, Hanpira Tlamp. The foliage cuts away easily with the monomolecular blade slicing a path through. The branches of the trees above droop and naturally knot together to make the general shape of a natural, heavy net. And even crawling on the ground, there just wasn't enough room to navigate without getting tied up in things. Made sense that most of the wildlife were birds that lived on top of the mess, or small vermin, or snakes that could get under or through the endless web of vegetation. Thankfully, the nets had a weakness in that they parted almost like curtains when cut vertically, and so progress, while slower than anyone liked, was nowhere near as slow as they feared it would be. No wonder we couldn't scan through this mess. Every branch and leaf here is naturally using axiom to enhance their ability to absorb light and heat. Thank good they haven't unified. Why? Bartholomew asks. He had only been assigned to the scout squad for the past 3 months and was still acclimatizing to both Apuk culture and his new size. Oh, honey, that is a deep pit of explanation, the squad leader Varley Dwar says as she slices through. Just focus on the mission. Do you hear anything? Bartholomew pauses and tilts his head, then holds up a hand and steps past the group. Humming, it's very, very soft. Ah, that direction. Electrical? Yes, which is why I moved past the group. A lot of our kit makes noise just inside the frequencies I can hear, Bartholomew answers. You should have told us that before. We know that Fossa can hear our gear, but you weren't spliced from a Fossa, were you? Koiran and Furless rabbis. Both species with powerful ears. It must have widened your hearing range. Yeah, I get an extra 1,000 hertz in both directions. Bartholomew answers and she pauses and considers. Those are powerful ears. Barlidwar entos. Scene change. Large clearing, the bright forest, Finan lilb to lelb. What happened to them? The triplets three ask. Huh? Bartholomew asks as he's knocked out of his rhythm. Your old team, Sky presses. Lost some of them over the years. Most of them completed their tours of duty and went into other jobs. It's what I did after a while. Who'd you lose? The triplets ask. No one in this story. Oh, spoilers, Days complains, and there's some giggling. All right, well, if having a spoiler ruins things, then here's another. I got out alive too. Bartholomew asks, and there's some laughter at his goofy confession, but back to a long time ago on a world far, far away. Was it a dark and stormy night? Sky asks. I'm sure it was somewhere. We've got a whole galaxy to work with, after all, Bartholomew says with a shrug. But that also means that on the day the first Mutras was cloned, it was a dark and stormy night, and the day you were born, it was a dark and stormy night. There's more than a few giggles at his deep, growly voice, and he laughs with them. Sirisian, all right. Back to the story. Scene change. Thick forested valley, eastern reachers. 450 years ago, Hanpira Tlam. The one man of the recon squad is slowly leading them forward. Bit by bit, always towards the source of the humming when he suddenly stops. What's wrong, Mike? Varlador asks. I think it just moved, Bartholomew says. Scene change. Large clearing, the bright forest, lilb to lelb. Did it? The triplets ask. I'm getting to it. Scene change. Thick forested valley, eastern reachers, 450 years ago, Hanpira Tlamp. Did you hear anything else? No, which is weird. Anything making this much electrical noise moving? At all? Would snap branches or crunch stone or something? Bartholomew notes as he looks around. I don't know, where is it coming from now? That way, he says, pointing to the right, and the team starts cutting slowly through the forest again. It doesn't take long as the entire time Bartholomew is getting more and more used to the sound before suddenly stopping, then taking a step back, then stopping. Hey, is it me or is the axiom? He starts to ask before one of his teammates pulls him back and pulls the hood of the stealth cloak over his head. It activates and the cloak goes from generally matching the area to a perfect replica of the forest around them as he follows the lead of the team and everyone vanishes in their adaptive camouflage. Something shifts and for a moment there is a solid wall. They're using the axiom in the forest to hide their own ship's signature, Barlidwar notes. But you seen this before? It's like going low power while landing on a high mineral asteroid, she says. A beam of green light begins flowing over the area, and everyone ducks behind the nearest trees and hunkers down in the net-like branches. The beam passes over, and nothing happens beyond the wall of solid metal fading out again. They can't detect us either, one of the girls mutters. Exactly. The best part about someone using these hiding places is that they can be turned against them with ease, Varladwar says. So is an entire ship just out of phase? I've never even heard of that before, Bartholomew says. Ships generally move incredible distances on the casual, and with even a small amount of space dust, you have to keep changing how it's phasing. A phase can remain only for a few moments in space, but if you're only moving a little, it can be kept up for a long time, Varlador says. Balimari, sync up and give us a line. On it, ma'am, the Apuk says as she walks up and holds up her hands, then phases out before phasing back in, except her right arm. She then brushes back the cloak, and Varlador hooks up a line to it. She passes it around. Everyone hang on, I'm trying to feel my way in. Bartholomew takes it at the end, and after a few moments there is a wrenching sensation, and suddenly they're in darkness. There's a bit of scrabbling around, and suddenly the lights turn on. There are numerous shelves, and they are stasis gray. Bartholomew moves to look into a shelf, but is tugged on his cloak, and he turns. He follows the team out of the room. He withdraws his plasma rifle and slips out after his team. Ma'am, is mission goal? We find a way to identify this craft without detection. If it's what we're looking for, then we plant the charges and scuttle it. Otherwise, we identify ourselves and demand an explanation of this unusual, but not necessarily illegal or malicious series of circumstances. Scene change. Large clearing, the bright forest, lilb to lelb. Was it? The triplets asked excitedly. Hang on, I'm almost there, Bartholomew says. Is there a big fight? It's not always a fight that brings out the win, he says. Scene change. Hidden starship. Thick forested valley. Eastern Reachers. 450 years ago. Hanpira Tlamp. Gala, you're up. Varlador orders as they find a console fixed into a wall, and the computer expert rushes up to it and quickly activates it. No password, no protections, and yeah. This is it. We're on the brazen glare, the Alfar woman reports. Good, we just need to get to the Enginvi scuttle this place, and there is a whisper of an automatic door opening, the sound of whimpering in pain, and Bartholomew turns. Hostages! What? The brazen glare pirates have attacked a bunch of ships, right? All hands lost. That was the report. I can hear people whimpering, ma'am. I think they took prisoners, he says, and the small team pauses. Change of plans. Gala, set a timer to alert our reinforcements to this ship's location. We need to secure and protect the prisoners and prevent the ship from retreating. Time to set. 10 minutes. Scout Bartholomew, lead us to the hostages. Yes, ma'am, he says, and he turns and lowers his hood to get everything possible out of the way. A bit of shifting, and his ears can stand up fully. They twitch around, and he narrows in on the location with ease. This way. He leads the charge around 2 corners and stops the entire team at the edge of a third. What is it? Varlador asks. Someone's in there? Someone free, and I think armed. Yes, something thudding against her thigh. Dense and heavy. Good man, can you handle them? Yes. He answers before he hits the button to open the door and brings up his plasma rifle even as he slips into the room. Don't! The Apuk pirate freezes with her hand halfway to a plasma pistol, and she stares at him, or possibly down the shaft of the primed and ready plasma rifle. What are you? She asks as his eyes quickly scan the room. Numerous women in cells with force fields on them. None are looking to be at risk of death. But all have been badly beaten. A few are bleeding. We're asking the questions here, criminal, Varlador says as she steps around him. Just 2? Oh no, you're not ready for the Imperial Army. We may be scouts, but this ship is already scuttled. All that's left is the details. Varlador promises with a wide smile that shows every sharp tooth an Apuk has. Scene change. Large clearing, the bright forest, Lilb to Lelb. And then there was a big fight, right? Sky asks. Nope. Varlador's bluff was so good that by the time they figured anything out, it was already too late. That's boring. Sometimes boring is best, but the ship was captured without harm. We caught the pirates without having to fire a shot, and all the hostages got the medical attention and help they needed. A good ending. It would be nice to have a good ending, Days remarks. The fact that the youngest one, the one that's actually 9 years old, said that is depressing. Your story's only beginning. We have plenty of time to write a very nice ending. I mean, heck, I'm one of the first Mutras, and my story isn't anywhere near over yet. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 603, treads softly around sorcerers. So are there. The children start to ask and turn to look away. Is something wrong, children? He's back? All 5 of them ask together, and Bartholomew's eyebrows go up. Who's back and why? He asks. Big Bird, Day says. Big Bird? Jacob Schrektalon. That's his name. He was one of the first to actually realize what was going on and escaped. Then he came back to try and save us, Sky says. A hero then. He wasn't soon enough, and he didn't have enough for everyone. Doesn't mean that what he did wasn't a very, very good or brave thing, Bartholomew says as he stands up. Let's go meet him. He sounds like a good guy. Yeah, but he's not part of the forest. Him getting here was weird, Days says, and everyone glances around. All right. I've got a tracker on that grill so I can find it after. Why don't we all head out and say hello? See how he got here? Scene change. Foot of the first mushroom, bright forest, Lilb Tolob. He stares at the grafted bit of bark in the massive mushroom. Thinking. Just thinking. All the choices that led him here, seeming to flash before him. The choice to hide so long ago. The choice to run when he overheard what had happened. The choice to stop looking for his home and family when none of the old numbers worked. The choice to go back with a new name, a new idea, and a long-term plan. Choices, choices, and choices, leading him to where and who he was today, a complete stranger from that vague echo of a ghost that was the original Jacob Schrecktalon. The tiny spores have landed on him, and there is a question. Another choice, one that feels different from all the others. It's there. Power for the reaching, and he wants it. Oh, does he want? He has felt helpless and never wants that again. He has felt fear and pain and loss and loneliness, and he has offered the answer to all of it. But is it too far? How can he ask the children here? How can he ask anyone? Sure, he could try joining up with another forest, but he had been broken here, on this world. Some piece of him belonged on Lilb Tulelb. Some piece of him was buried on Lilb Tulelb. He wants the power, but he wants to stand tall. Tall on his own. But no one is alone. He's part of the Undaunted. They've given him so much. He's part of the Schrecktalons. They've given him back his history. One of two very big steps is right in front of him. He qualifies, fully qualifies in every way to be a sorcerer. Why, all he has to do is say yes. But he hesitates. Why is he hesitating? But he listens to that. He has lost his choices before, lost his chances in a moment of weakness, and it had been a long, long time until he made a choice again. But this forest already helped him. It's already done so much for him. Helped shut down, trap, and even now is killing the evil bitches that made his life into their plaything. He wants that, needs that. They deserve to die screaming, and he desires to be the one to make them scream, and they no doubt felt they deserved to have their way with him. That thought brings him up completely short as his mind goes blank for a moment, and he closes his eyes and forces it to think again. He needs to do something. Something. Say yes, say no, say later, say never, say. He can feel the enormous presence of a unified mind. Mushrooms, moss, flowers, insects, and small animals understand nothing of this confusion. But they're not alone. Hundreds of minds, all ravaged, all wounded and hurt, and so achingly familiar. They're looking into him too. As he's looking at them, his final doors shut fast, his last barrier up and firm. It's not a judgment they're offering him, not anything. There's understanding. They're so like him, but so different. He had the choice to run and didn't fully take it. They never had that choice. He had fought back in subtle ways while they were helpless. He had remade himself, but they were all still. He does and does not belong here. He needs to be here. Needs to help make this monstrosity right. But not like this, not. He can't intrude on their healing. Turi, he's almost one of them. He had been sabotaging the evil bitches, but that made him close to them. Maybe too close. The slight kernel of guilt, the tiny amount of accountability he had. No, he couldn't have done better. Everything set against him was too much. But he didn't do enough. Even if it wasn't in his power to do enough, he still failed to do enough, and as such, no, not here. There is no anger at the rejection, no sudden turning of rage or wrath. It just stops reaching out. Then it seems to pause. He hears the creaking of ancient wood, groaning under impossible weight, but only swaying with it. A blast of hot wind blows by him, and he feels sand and seeds scour at his face, while something of truly unimaginable size turns a gaze his way that sees with the light of stars into him and through him. The choice has expanded. Ancient wisdom, youthful exuberance, lonely resilience, and immense togetherness. But what does he want? The strength to be free. Free to make his own choices and live with them. The space to be. He lets a forest in, and all four of them exult as they are kin, and the family has grown stronger. Hot air rustles his feathers, and the smell of an open sky fills his nose, despite the endless rain just above. There is a sensation of surprise as the only other mind at his level realizes what he's done and wonders what to do or what he wants, then sees and understands the answers. calms themselves and relaxes. There is a glance his way from ardent calm and a pang of understanding. He backs away, mentally at least. Physically, he's now in the clearing with him, as well as many, if not all, the Bright Forest sorcerers and several local police officers, Lady Alara Sam and the forests whisper his name is Bartholomew. So that was quite the thing to see in the Axiom. Mind explaining just what it was? Bartholomew asks. He just joined with the lush forest despite being in the bright forest, Ardenkarm says in a mildly impressed tone that also has more than a few tinges of confusion. Because he doesn't want to stand alone, but doesn't feel like he belongs here. What? But he's the one that came back. Got away and came back. That's awesome, Days announces. Yeah, and I couldn't do anything. I got a ship that wasn't big enough and put a couple idiots into their organization. Then the day of my big attack, I didn't know about most of the targets I needed and nearly blew everything because I was ignorant. I tried, and if not for outside help, Xuan would have failed, Jacob says. The bright forest is loud, almost as present as the lush forest. I need the strength to stop this from ever happening again. But I failed you. I failed all of you. I shouldn't be here, he says, and before he can vanish, Winston Megarap is around his legs. He freezes and the child slithers up him before grabbing on and hugging him. You did more than entire armies, the Nagasha boy says. And it wasn't enough, Jacob says. You haven't been skipping sessions with your therapist, have you? Another voice rings out and a bespectacled man walks into the edge of the clearing. He gives the children a small wave and smiles at them. No, but recovering from a guilt complex takes a while. I know it's not entirely rational, and it's why I try to work through it. None of us would have had any problem with you being part of our force, Winston says. I would have. I'm different, but I'm still on your side. We remember now, Winston whispers. What? Jacob asks as his eyes widen, and he wraps his wings around the Nagasha boy. What did you just say? We remember. It broke it open. The horrible stuff on Centris. Oh, God. This is why I was told I was needed. But why didn't they tell me everything? Who? Winston asks. Jacob turns and looks towards Koga. My grandfather? He was doing his training thing with Crow and said I was needed here and asked if I had time. I said yes, and I was here, feeling the forest pressing down at me. Excuse me, when I need to beat up a formerly old man who taught me how to fight, Koga notes before vanishing. Scene change. Eastern Garden, Undaunted Arcology, Zalwar. And these things can be very useful and, oh, a practical demonstration. Excuse me, Koga the Elder says as he hands Crow one of the eggs filled with explosive powder and keeping the other 5 from the half dozen. What's going on? Crow asks before the small growth of the dark forest suddenly has Koga the Younger racing out at a dead sprint. Koga the Elder throws down a smoke bomb and both of them vanish from sight for a moment before one of the 2 nearly identical Japanese men is sent flying backwards and upside down out of the cloud. Really? Ain't smoke bombs? Koga the Younger demands as he stomps out of the cloud. Even as his grandfather lands so lightly, he rolls into a relaxed seating position. What is you so upset, grandson? You fucking teleported Captain Shriktalan into the bright forest to try and make him form a bond with it. Do you have any idea how delicate the situation on the ground is? Very, Koga the Elder says simply. Then why? Because while it's not always the correct antidote, getting the opposite of a poison into your system can help with the healing process. I beg your finest fucking pardon? You've been around Americans too long. Grandfather. Fine. Jacob Shriktalan is effectively the exact opposite of the people that hurt those young boys. In almost every respect. They are adults that made victims of children. He is an adult that was once a victim. They used their power to abuse. He built his to save them. They have been kept away from the children to avoid them meeting the children's wrath. He has avoided them out of shame of not being able to help them further. There is more, and it goes on for a fair amount of time. But he's the yang to their yin, bringing some balance to the situation. And why no be upfront about such things? Wouldn't work. Bracing for such a thing can make it less honest, less sincere, and total honesty is the antidote in a situation where there are liars around every corner. Koga the elder says as he rises up, "Trust that your elders know what they're doing, young man. If you're digging out a bullet, of course you're shedding blood." The fact he gestures around his thigh where he once had to do just that, having in a flash of the memory leaks out, really drives the point home to his grandson. "This is a lot more complicated than a chunk of lead buried in the skin," Koga the younger says. "More lodged in a bone. But yes, it is a good way to look at it, though. The huge issue requires a great deal to deal with it. Even taking out the sheer amount of death that is either done, happening, or going to happen, they need more. And you think Jacob is that more? Well, it's not like they can be settled down with battle princesses as other sorcerers have done. Trying it will just make things worse. But seeing a dear ally so contrite they could not do more? It may have been better if he was a full brother, but as a cousin from another forest? Sure, that works too. And you think that adding another traumatized person onto the massive pile of trauma is somehow going to make things less traumatic? Should I really be here for this? Crow asks. No, the younger says immediately. Of course, it's just the Koga here. It's fine, the elder says immediately, and the Titan sighs in frustration. And I thought life was weird when I was just a giant super soldier on an alien world with a dozen supermodel girlfriends. Just girlfriends? Koga the elder asks. What are you, shy? Grandfather. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 604. Tread softly around sorcerers. Excuse me a moment. One side, little buddy. Hey, make a path, please, Dagi says as he drags Daiju into the clearing, and the crowd close to Jacob turns their way. The Valorant man slowly shuffles into a circle as he's more or less completely tied up by the numerous Nagasha that have decided that hugging a man with feathers that smells of a hot scrubland is really, really nice. Grandfather wishes to... Daiki begins as he presents the straw dummy his grandfather traded himself out for. There is a bit of whispering, but some of the kids get it, and there are some giggles. Daiki then focuses, and suddenly the straw dummy is replaced by his nearly identical grandfather in a bathrobe. Guess what? Why did you wake me up, oh honorable grandchild? Daiju asks, and Daiki pulls off the robe, and he's in soft pajamas. He pulls at those too, and he's in a tuxedo, followed by an overlarge shirt reading, "Innocent is as innocent does." I'd ask how you're doing this, but I unfortunately already know. Of course you do. I taught you myself, Daiju says, and Daiki sighs. Ah, young people, so serious with everything, so utterly sure that everything is the end of the world if it doesn't go their way. Grandfather just apologized for throwing him into the middle of this mess. Why? It worked? You were literally one of the people responsible for teaching me manners. Why are you doing this? Because people apologize for too much. I've helped him. I've helped them, and most importantly, I'm still helping them all now with my wisdom. And I am shameless because I have nothing to be ashamed of, Daiju explains. A little warning would have been nice, Jacob remarks. Could any explanation have prepared you for the actual sensation of joining a forest? No. There we go, see? I'm in the right. Now can you please calm down, grandson? Daiju asks, and Daiki sighs in disgust. Okay, fine, Daiki says, letting go of his grandfather, who pulls off the shirt to reveal the robe he was in. You're getting really quick on woodwalking things onto yourself. It's a perfect application. I have my entire wardrobe, armory, and all my tools in my grasp at all times. It's beyond perfect, Daiju says. Now I've actually been giving a lesson on making smoke bombs to my newest student, Mr. Koga. His name is Crow. Phonetically, it's Koga, only in his native language, and we should respect his language and culture and refer to him in the way of his people, as Koga, Daiju says, and Daiki sighs as he takes off his glasses and rubs the bridge of his nose. What's he like? A couple of Bright Forest sorcerers ask. He's one of the really, really big undaunted, meaning teaching him how to be sneaky is all kinds of fun. Who wants to learn with him? Grandfather, kidnapping is still illegal. It's not kidnapping if he's back where I found him when I'm done. Yes, it is. Fine, I will... Daiju coughs uncomfortably and theatrically. Ask him. He coughs a few more times as the children laugh. Then he vanishes in a woodwalk. I am very sorry for what my grandfather's like. It's like someone flipped a switch and all the dignity. Well, duty and decorum was just turned off, Daiki says. It's fine. He did help, just not in a conventional way. And to be frank, conventional answers to complicated situations are the kind that generally make things worse. Jacob says, I just, hmm, is something wrong? Daiki asks. Not sure. I've been making traditional braided ropes of the Valrine to put everything into a story, but I don't know what to do about this one. A mushroom, a flower, a branch of a bush. This is this is a big part of my story, a point in my life that it's different now. I am, but I'm also not. And how do you tie that into a knot? How do you encapsulate or summarize something like that in a traditional braid? No idea. I don't know enough about Valorine customs to comment on that, Daiki says, but this may need an Apuk touch. You were on an Apuk colony world when you joined with an entity on another Apuk colony world. So maybe that might... Can we see the braids? Some of the Bright Forest sorcerers asks, and Jacob pauses, then considers. I'll need to bring some lush forest into my ship, which shouldn't be hard, and I should do it anyways. And, excuse me, Ardenkarm? Yes. Why is the forest telling me it has ammunition? I've spliced a bush to produce nuts where the outer shell is made of iron. I use it as coilgun ammo. That has a lot of promise. Think we could scale it up to like, I don't know this big. I mostly use a spaceship to fight, so the coil guns are a lot bigger. Jacob asks, trying to open his wings out enough to indicate the size, but he's still fairly tied up. How much bigger? Ardenkarm asks in amusement. All right, about the size of my torso. Maybe we could splice it with something else, like a gourd kind of plant? Could be worth trying. I'm going to need a bigger gun, Ardenkarm notes. When we both have free time, I can show you how to operate a ship's weapons. Can you show me how to pilot too? I can give you some tips on long shooting with a coil gun. Sure. Scene change. Eastern Garden, Undaunted Arcology, Zalwar. So do you or do you not have permission to take a brief step off the planet, provided you can get back in time for your duties? So long as I don't break a law and arrive on time, presentable and ready for my duties, then my superiors have a very hard time caring about where I'm going, unless they think it's a good story. Good. It's a great story on teaching children how to make smoke bombs on another world to calm them down from a massive murder spree that is technically legal, culturally appropriate, and entirely deserved. How is a murder spree legal? When it's in a jurisdiction that has a lot of ancient rules that pin all legal blame of an adept's rampage on the person that caused the adept to exist in the first place? This is that magic forest stuff, isn't it? Crow asks. I gotta admit, beyond the language, I never really got that deep into the whole rain dancing, buckskin wearing, and such parts of the culture. My heritage and ancestry reduced to just language, in a bit of fashion, because I was a dumb kid. Why the language? Made me feel like I was part of a secret club. You don't really appreciate something until you've burnt your bridges back to it, Crow admits. It can be like that. I don't know it personally. My own life was a very, very different story, Daiju notes. But that's not right now. How are you with children? Considering most everyone looks like a child to me now, fairly good little guy. That's the spirit, though these ones are going to look like toddlers by compare. Let's just make sure it doesn't take too long. I do have a social life. Oh yeah, to get girlfriends, shy boy? My girl's just finished vetting them. She wants to be careful. Yeah, delicate merchandise needs careful handling. Daiju mocks him. Oi! Scene change. Foot of the first mushroom, bright forest, lilb to lilb. All right, everyone. Who wants some smoke bomb lessons? They're a useful tool that can always help. Even mid-conversation if things get awkward, Daiju asks as he reappears next to the clearing with the enormous form of Crow. He then pauses at the image, as the more aquatic or amphibious bright forest sorcerers have evidently dogpiled Jacob and are spread out over his wings as he uses his talons to hold up a couple more of them, the actual sharp point well away from the children. Do they work underwater? An AKA boy before vanishing and reappearing next to him. No, and while I don't know how to do that yet, I'm more than happy to help you figure it out. Underwater smoke bombs would be cool, wouldn't they? Yeah, the AKA boy announces as he reaches up to grab at the carton the Daiju has, and he's caught with one arm and held up as Daiju lowers the carton with egg-based smoke bombs in it. Hunt eggs? Yeah, a lot of ninja tools started off as very simple things. There's ways to get the good stuff in eggs out without fully breaking the shell. Then you're left with a little container you can fit all sorts of things in, such as all the stuff you need to make a smoke bomb. After that, it's just chemistry and a willingness to get things done, he explains to the little fish boy. Now, who wants to make things? I got not only lots of supplies, but the insides be used to make a big egg dish. I'll get my grill. I've got some pans in there, Bartholomew says with a smile. Someone, send me. In short order, he's cooking in the clearing, and there's a powerful energy in the air, one that misses that two people are missing. Scene change. The Bloody Heron, Western Hangar, Undaunted Arcology, Zalwar. While a pair of small flowers are poking out of the potting soil, a sun lamp above and a very contemplative-looking Jacob is just staring at the small bit of the something more. It's basically a teleport beacon to his ship, to his quarters. Maybe he should put this in the dining room instead. That sounds like a better idea. He picks up the pot and starts walking, his claws making clicking sounds as they come into contact with the deck plating. He had thought about putting in a carpet when he first bought the ship and started modifying it, but he'd just end up shredding it in short order with how sharp his claws are, and after a few turns he sets it down in the dining room. Will this be enough? I mean, I don't know. It already feels like I'm overdoing it a bit with the braided ropes and a proper perch. Are plants too now, he asks as he remembers. Cold, barren, places where he just existed. A room for interviews where he flagged anyone competent and a possible plant and only sent the people just stupid enough to cause damage or let things slide, but not so stupid as to give away the plan. He wonders how many of those idiots are already dead. How many would recognize him? How many of them leveraged their positions to get time? He shudders at the thought. If not those fools, it would have been much more competent and capable women, and he certainly didn't want that. He knows he handed over the list, the IDs of all the women he kept. But maybe he should make sure. He can go to Lilb Tulub and Serbo and Sobin Ride and the Vinok Nebula whenever he wants now. He also can pilot his ship like a beast. Even if he needs to upgrade it with some... It's going to take a lot of modifications to make it so I can use lush forest stuff with a coil gun. Easier than you think, Ardenkarm says as he's suddenly there. It doesn't take any modification with the iron nuts. Here. He places his massive coil rifle on the table. Now these weapons are deceptively simple. A primary chamber, an ammunition reserve, and the barrel with induction coils. So long as what you threw in can fit inside the barrel without scraping the walls in any direction or configuration, then you can use it constantly without damaging the weapon. It works through sequential magnetic induction. Now there are a few different models for how it sets off the sequence. Most of them work by just having them all go off really quickly, one after another, in a specific sequence. Some try to get clever and can actually squeeze out a little more power for less axiom use with a much more complicated system. And I do mean more complicated. One charges the ammunition with an electrical current and ionized air contained within the barrel by a force field. It radically shifts the axiom profile of the weapon and makes it look a little closer to a very low-power plasma weapon. Sorry, I misread things. No, it's okay. I just wasn't expecting the sudden lesson on how a coil gun works. I've mostly used lasers and plasma. Yeah, a lot of people put a lot of stock into not needing ammo or having it be really easy to get. Right, so most models use a baked-in sequence for basically turning on all the coils fast enough to launch the ammo, and another so it uses the ammo to charge the coils? Yeah, I think they were trying to get something more powerful, but instead they got something that fools sensors and adepts looking for it. That type's a mess. Now the really powerful ones are the loop coils. Complete gluttons for power, and using them feels like it's about to come apart in your hands. How's that work? It uses a big loop to expand the runway of the ammo, then lets it out at the last moment. They're either really awkward to hold, or so much of the weapon is in expanded spaces that even a little flicker in the axiom field makes the whole mess come apart. But even when they work perfectly, you feel like you're holding a bomb that's just done putting up with you. Scary stuff. Right. And thank you for the distraction from my bit of a funk there. Oh, you're welcome. I really did misread that situation. You're fine. Keep going. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 605. Tread softly around sorcerers. Crow is up to his chest in excited children, which if he wasn't sitting on the ground would be a much bigger issue. But the bright forest sorcerers are very comfortable within their domain, and he's as much a big playmate as he is a jungle gym to play around on. The dozen little merboys, also known as Akka, were using him as something big to drap themselves over as they watched and learned how to make smoke bombs. Hey, the one that was on his left shoulder asks. The little guy has elected to wear a long shirt that he had sewn patches on to extend it until he was basically in a long sock that barely exposed his silvery tail and had little holes for his twiggy arms. Yeah? Why aren't you letting the forest in? I don't even feel it wanting in, Crow answers. Really? And why not? Dunno. I guess I'm just not the type. Well, that doesn't make sense. I don't want it. Why not? It just sounds weird to me. Besides, I've got enough going on without having a whole forest looking through my eyes. Like what? Well, I'll not give you names because I like this thing called privacy, but I drag my heels a lot when it came to romance. So I only had one girl. She is my first wife and has taken the initiative to bring some other girls into the family and, ew. Yeah, when you're that age, kissing and stuff is pretty gross, isn't it? Don't patronize me, I remember. Everything. I was working on a welding license. Oh, patronize, big word for a little boy? Crow says in a teasing tone as he brings up his hand and uses a finger to rustle his hair. The Akka boy shifts and bits his finger. Han ha ha, he exclaims. Been a bit since I went fishing. Crow notes as he slowly raises his hand, and the biting fish boy goes with it until he's holding the little guy up in the air. He then gently moves his other hand into position and slowly picks him up around the torso. All right, that's enough. Your fingers are nasty. What were you doing? Playing with yourself? No, I was being played with by Grandpa Koga. Ew. Not like that, and you know it. I do, but it's funnier this way. So, ew. I'd ask how old you are, but that number's up to interpretation. Yep, the little fish boy remarks. Okay, so do you have a name at least? I keep calling you Fish Boy or Merkid in my head. Merkid? Mer people are a human mythology thing that closely resemble the AK, Crow says, sometimes with magical voices, sometimes with some other weird power, but always built like an AKA torso, arms, head, and the hips coming together to form a fishtail. Although some of the stories debate at where the tail begins. Wish mine started high. I'd have been left alone and maybe owning a welding shop or something. The Akka says before slipping out of Crow's grip and falling into his lap, then arranges to sit entirely on one leg. I'm Yitran. I used to be of Cartha Fleet, but there isn't one anymore. I checked. I'm sorry to hear that, he says. It just fell apart and everyone went their own ways to be absorbed into other fleets. It can happen, especially if there's an idiot for a fleet commander. Sucks, but better than being broken by a pirate attack or something. What about your family? Yep, it's awkward. What do you mean? They want proof. One and apparently a DNA scan isn't enough, or secrets. And they're not willing to even talk to their fleet commander about deviating their course on an obvious lie. So according to their schedule, I'm here for 5 years until I get the chance to even prove myself as theirs. And fuck 'em. 5 years. Not much time when you're an adult who's just going from delivery to delivery and the months blur together. But when you're a child with an entire forest pulsing through you and the need for blood and death and exploration and growth and so much more screaming through you, then you really, really feel every damn minute. You're living life at FTL speeds for all that they're moving physically in FTL. Yeah, exactly. I'm living more today than they will all year, Yitran says. Haha, the thing is, what the actual hell am I going to do in those 5 years? It's enough time to get something started or a few small projects, but not enough to get anything big done. Well, I've become an absolute monster in just a bit more than one, so there's got to be something going on you can do. I did think about doing some deep-sea salvaging. Water-friendly hull cutters aren't hard to get your hands on. And when you know how to use it, then sunken ships are basically puzzles to pull apart. But the planet is well taken care of. In one regard at least, so I don't exactly have much of anything to work with in the form of wrecks. So salvage is mostly out. Do you know how to cobble things together? Not fast and not effectively. Whatever madness is in the gobs, I don't got it. So how are all you little water guys handling it? Is there part or an outreach of the bright forest in the water or something? A few rainwater rivers are basically endlessly flowing into the sea, and there's all kinds of little things living in that. Fresh water can be uncomfortable on the gills, but it's not bad, Eton says. I wonder how that works, scientifically, an endless rainstorm. Not totally endless. We get a couple days a month where it doesn't rain. Okay, fine, but that's still a lot of rain. What is happening on this planet that's making it happen? I'm not sure entirely. I've been assured it's a natural phenomenon, but the forest is located in such a way that any rain that would occur during the day occurs here instead. But most nighttime rains are allowed through. That doesn't sound natural, Daju remarks with a grin. No doubt their idea of natural is, just so we started something and it's just happening on its own now. See? Totally natural. Like how the rock falling down a cliff to smash your house is a natural event and not covered by your insurance. Never mind the fact that someone on our payroll pushed the stone. What does a random employee pushing a random stone have to do with a stone striking your home? Pish posh. We're going to have to sue you for defamation. It's not really like that, is it? Alara Salmas and Daiju laughs. Oh, dear girl, we have rules for a reason, and it's not for the sake of the good, patient, and cooperative sorts. It's because not everyone is like that. For some people, the only reason they don't just kill everyone that annoys them is because they're going to be punished if they do that, Daiju says. And unfortunately, the very laws that stop them from doing things blatantly tends to allow them to be more subtle about it. They wiggle their way into positions of power, and rather than the basic police force, you need something a little more to stop them from being a problem. Like this, one of the sorcerers next to him asks as he holds up a skull covered in blood and mushrooms. And who was that? My last customer. The little Tret boy replies. I recognized her. I don't really know who she was, but I found her in stasis, and our reunion was a lot more fun for me. There was still a lot of crying and screaming, but this time I was the one laughing. Do you need some time go clean that off, Daiju asks. No, I want it to rot, the boy says. Of course. Anyways, you've all tried to make a smoke bomb, so let's test them. Aim for that mushroom and remember which is yours. Throw. There is a lot of smoke in the clearing in short order. Scene change. Deep cavern cargo bay. 4 light minutes from the star, Lilb Tulob system. They look so normal. Arden Karm notes and Jacob nods. That's the scary part. There's no clear sign that someone is a monster and, who are you? The speaker suddenly says. The little killers are taking a break. I'm the one that got away and came back to sabotage things. Just making sure my entire list is accounted for. Your list? I identified a lot of these women, and can I assume that an empty stasis pod with someone's name on it means that the little ones got here first? Jacob asks. Yes, who is the other one? Oh, I'm Arden Karm from Sobin Ride. Arden answers. And what are you doing here? Standing with a friend. A what? A friend. You know, a person that's not family, but you like them anyways? I know what a friend is. Then why did you ask? Because it's a stupid thing to do. Do you have any idea how horrible this situation is? Arden Karm shrugs. Don't shrug at this. This isn't a thing to shrug at. I've had this conversation already. This is the last of the ships, Arden Karm says. And we still have a few missing, either as empty pods or as still sleeping monsters. Jacob notes. Maybe they got killed in the initial raids? You did hit one of their initial holding areas first after all. Maybe. I'll need to check the old obituaries. But this is concerning. We've got 10 people missing. Really? Yeah, 4 idiot thugs I inserted into the organization, 2 handlers I ID'd, an illegal doctor and plus an accountant I personally met, and finally 2 customers that I know of, Jacob says as he scans through the last of the rows of prisoners and shakes his head. Damn, just these 2. This means we're still down 2 thugs, 2 handlers, a doc, an accountant, and 2 customers. Who are you? The captain of the ship demands. Jacob Ch.601, initially a product on sale, then an escapee, then an infiltrator weakening the organization from the inside. A good chunk of the arrests were due to my own personal investigations. But we're missing some, which means that we're likely missing more. Some vermin managed to escape the sinking ship. On behalf of the vermin of the lush forests, I must protest your use of comparison. Arden Karm notes and Jacob huffs, then sighs. And we have a hunt to begin. Jacob notes as his facial features twist and the natural dynamic look the feathers that serve as his eyebrows give him makes the expression very noticeable, before he finishes with a deep frown. They think they can run? Fine then, I will chase, I and many, many others. And if I catch them myself, I'm going to bring back the rituals of pre-contact Shriktalons, straight to the homeworld, straight to the thorns, and straight through there. How about you focus more how best to find them more than punish them? After all, when you got them, you can make up your mind then. But you need to get them first. Yes, you are correct. Thank you. What is a pre-contact Shriktalon? The captain asks. A society of maniacs that believed they had to torture the galaxy into submission to survive, Jacob says as he turns his gaze and looks right at the camera. I think people need a reminder that actions have consequences. And who are you to determine that? The consequence, he says dramatically, and Ardenkarm cannot stop the tiny snort of amusement. Too much? Yeah, a little, Ardenkarm says diplomatically, and he's trying to be polite about it. That's bad. Jacob notes, what is even going on this ship? A lot? So, you plan to hunt down and murder the women that got away? They were participating or complicit in mass murder, rape, slavery, and so many other crimes that we're going to be here for a while, listing them all off. There's so much that until the Bright Forest sorcerers started popping in here to grab someone to kill, I thought that a judge had just had them all hurled into a black hole to save everyone the trouble and prevent the system from tearing itself apart. Really, you thought a judge did that? Ardenkarm asks. I'd have been back here one way or another a lot sooner if I knew these girls were just in stasis and hadn't been quietly forced through a food processor somewhere. With your one ship? If I had to ram one of these ships directly into a star to get some of these girls, I would have. But I have options now. But first, I want to get all these monsters, all of them,